Hello, I'm Vic Johnson. You're watching Goals to Go.
Sure enough, it's going to cause you difficulty in the future.
Right. Well, you set out to become a learner, and I know that over the years that you've become a voracious reader. You read a lot of different things,
Yeah.
and it really surprised me the first time I heard you outline some of the things you've read. Because it's not what someone might think traditionally is personal development, but well, share your reading list or the types of things that you've read with us.
The centerpiece of my library I got from a book called How to Read a Book
Okay.
by Mortimer Adler.
Okay.
And he's got a list in there of what he calls the greatest books ever written. So I use that as a centerpiece for my library. And it includes the classics, and Shakespeare and all the rest, and the Bible, and those very basic, fundamental writings that everybody should take a look at.
Right.
And so I started with that. But then all the rest of it, Think and Grow Rich, that we've heard about for so long, that goes way back. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, made a big impression on me. And my parents made sure I was a pretty good scholar of the Bible by the time I was 19. So I use it as a great source as well.
Right. And what do you, someone who doesn't like to read, how do they take an attitude of walk away from a book? How do they become someone who loves to read?
I don't know. I think part of it is if you don't read well,
right,
there's all kinds of classes you can take on
right,
developing speed reading, where you can read much faster,
right,
and get through a book, in a few days rather than, a couple of months.
right.
If you read 2 books a week for 10 years, you've read 1,000 books.
Wow.
And you couldn't read 1,000 books in the next 10 years without it drastically affecting every part of your life.
Right.
So part of it is if you don't read well,
right,
sometimes you just get discouraged and say, well, I'm reading too slow, it takes too long.
Right.
But even if you read slow, you just have to do it every day and push yourself to read a little faster and read a little faster. But these classes, John Kennedy, when he was president, insisted that every member of his staff went through a speed reading course.
Right.
Evelyn Wood, who her course became famous. And because he understood the value of everybody expanding their mind and their knowledge. And not that you do everything you read, but just the resource in terms of knowledge, awareness, understanding,
right,
is powerful.
Right. So, I'm engaged in some type of reading program. I've become a learner. Obviously, at the point you found yourself, you had some negative habits.
Mm-hmm.
That came to light pretty quickly, probably, with Mr. Shove.
Well, my most severe negative habit was, lack of having a good financial plan. So he said, show me your financial plan. I said, I don't have a financial plan. I'm just struggling to pay my bills. And I get a little embarrassed when a creditor calls and says, hey, you told us the check was in the mail. And he said, well, evidently the last 6 years, I'd been working 6 years before I met him. I quit school when I was 19.
Right.
Went to work. I'm now 25. That's 6 years. And I just didn't have a good financial plan. So I changed all of that, starting at age 25. And by age 31, 32, I was a millionaire.
Okay.
The difference can be so dramatic.
Right.
And whether you've neglected a financial plan, or whether you've neglected your health, or whether you've neglected your relationships, and the quality of the relationship is okay, you're getting by, but maybe there's 75% of it you haven't explored in terms of value and promise for the future. Any neglect is worth taking a look at and see if you can't find some ways to remedy.
When you're 25, 26 years old, you've seen a side of life you've never seen before. You certainly saw where you wanted to go. How did you develop the belief inside that you could get there? Because you went in a relatively 6 years. I mean, goodness gracious, who wouldn't trade 6 years to go from broke to a billionaire?
That was a fast track. Part of that was learning the ability to attract other people. You can't do it by yourself, earn that kind of money, or make the investments that, make that kind of return. I think the early changes in my attitude were so dramatic that drove me on. I thought, wow, if I can make this much progress in this short of time, I wonder what I can accomplish, a year from now. So that was powerful. little things like the excuses I used to use for not doing well.
Okay.
Mr. Shelf said, "You've worked 6 years now, Mr. Rohn. How come you're not doing well?" And I says, "Well," I showed him my paycheck and said, "This is all they pay. You can't do well with this kind of paycheck." And he said, "Well, you're really not correct. This is not all they pay." I said, "No, yes, this is my paycheck." He says, "No, this is all they pay you." I thought, wow, I'd never looked at it like that before. He said, "Don't some people earn 5 times this amount, right, in the same company?" I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, then this is not all they pay. This is all they pay you.
Right.
And if you were to qualify for the 5 times of this amount, wouldn't your check be 5 times this amount?" I said, "Well, I never thought about that." So he said, "It's not, you don't blame the company. Just look within yourself. If you were more qualified and had more skills and rendered better service, more productivity, then everything would change." Then he gave me a phrase that's lingered with me all these years, and I teach it everywhere I go around the world. And he said, "If you will change, Mr. Rohn, everything will change for you. If you change your habits of eating, your health will change. If you change your skill level, your income will change. If you refine your attitude and personality, you'll start attracting people into your life that'll help you become successful." And that was true. And he said, the more you change yourself, the more things will change for you. Because up until then, I used to cross my fingers every day and say, "I sure hope things will change."
So you're
With him, I tried to use the excuse, say, "Things cost too much." He said, "No, you can't afford them."
right.
I thought, well, that's another way to look at it. He said, "It's not it, Mr. Rohn. It costs too much. Taxes are too high." I said, "No, it's not taxes, and it's not it, and it's not prices, and it's not circumstances. It's you.
Right.
Let's go to work on
Right.
you."
Well,
That was revolutionary for me, Vic.
Right. You changed a lot in those 6 years, obviously. When you started out, what were some of the daily things that you did differently, that you began to do differently? Daily habits, for instance, that you
One
had?
was my reading habits, but then the other was to, be a little more efficient in time management. Little phrase I use now and I teach around the world, don't start the day until you have it finished.
And so we're going to plan tomorrow before we
Yeah.
begin.
It's like building a house. When should you start building a house?
Right.
The answer is, as soon as it's finished.
Right.
Wouldn't it be foolish to start building a house if it wasn't finished?
Right.
If you were out there laying bricks and someone said, "What are you doing here?" Said, "I'm building a house." And they said, "What kind of house?" And you say, "I really don't know. I'm just laying bricks and getting started."
Right.
They'd come take you away, right? I mean,
Right.
it's foolish. So don't start the house until you have it finished. Don't start the day until you have it finished. Have a pretty good idea. This is what I want to accomplish today, and have that done before the day starts. If you wake up in the morning and say, "Let's see, what should I do today?" It's a little late.
A little late.
Yeah.